I'm being released from custody, and here I am to tell you that whatever you may be feeling, just because you've now got a criminal record, it doesn't mean that you'll never get a job. What it does mean, though, is that you've got to start thinking about how you sell your past, rather than letting it sell you. My name is Benjamin Zephaniah, and I actually left this prison over 30 years ago when it was called Windsor Green. Back in the day, I was in exactly the same position as many of you. I'd left school when I was 13 with literacy problems and no qualifications. Basically, I was feeling pretty helpless. But since then, I haven't let my criminal record hold me back from becoming a positive, productive member of society. Although my mother still thinks I'm a naughty boy. I now have a hospital ward named after me. I have 16 honorary university degrees and I'm a professor. I'm not telling you all this to show off. Well, maybe just a little. I just want you to understand that your criminal record doesn't define you. And more importantly, it doesn't mean that you can't get a job. But applying for a job with a criminal record is often much harder than applying for one without a record. When you tell a future employer about your past convictions, you are going to have to present yourself in the best possible light. And this film isn't just for people who have recently left prison. Maybe you've attended magistrate or Crown Court and got a criminal conviction that led to a fine, community service, or a probation order. You may have attended a police station and received a caution. All of these are now going to affect how you go about applying for a job. One of your biggest allies in your search for a job will be your probation officer. And this film has been produced in partnership with Staffordshire and West Midlands Probation.
Hi, my name is Paul Levy and I'm the Head of Interventions, Education, Training and Employment for Staffordshire and West Midlands Probation. We're making this film for three main reasons. Firstly, we know that those who have committed offences in the past, if they're in employment, they're far less likely to commit crime in the future. Secondly, there's been a recent change in the law regarding the disclosure in terms of the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, and it's important to update that information. And thirdly, we want to just provide some simple advice and guidance for those who may be on probation or have offended in the past in terms of what to say and how to deal with prospective employers to improve your chances of getting a job. A spent conviction is when you have been convicted of an offence. You usually have to disclose that to a prospective employer for a certain length of time after that sentence has been handed down. What it means when a conviction is spent is that a length of time has elapsed and you no longer have to provide that information. There are certain roles that you might apply for which are exempt from the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. These might include sensitive roles which need or require a greater degree of trust, such as working with children or vulnerable adults, or working directly with the public, such as healthcare professionals or even taxi drivers. Many employers actually confuse basic disclosure from something called DBS checks, which are the more enhanced checks that you might have to have. That used to be known as the CRB check. In terms of basic disclosure, employers are only allowed to have information relating to those convictions which are unspent, i.e. that rehabilitation period has not yet come to an end. In probation, we always advise that you adhere to the rules within the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. It's a really good idea to disclose at the very point when you're applying for a post. This enables you to have an honest conversation with any prospective employer, and it also means you will never have to look over your shoulder in case they find out at a later date that you have a previous conviction. So it really gives you a clear run in any job that you're applying for and enables you to build that job and build a career and a crime-free life in the future. If you need any more information, please contact your probation officer or look on the probation website.
This film is going to show you the do's and don'ts of applying for a job with a criminal record. Things like what information you have to reveal to a potential employer, and when you don't need to tell them about your past convictions. We're also going to tell you how you can find out if and when your convictions become spent. The first really important thing to remember is that you are not alone. Some 9 million people have a criminal record. So plenty of companies are employing ex-offenders without knowing that they have convictions, simply because they don't ask. Like me, you shouldn't let it define you. You might even be surprised at how well it can go when you do tell your potential employer.
Yeah, do you want to sort that out for us, please? Cheers.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, not a problem, Mr. Harrison. Okay. Well, I'm really pleased you're happy with it. Great, okay. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Dave, how are you?
Morning, John.
Good to see you.
Yeah. You saved my life with that last order. Just wanted to come down, thank you personally. To be honest, you've saved the company. If we'd lost the order, would have gone under.
Alright, boss, finished the Simpsons mock-up. It's all good to go on the CMC as soon as it's finished its last sequence. So.
Great. Oh, and can you do the Harrison specification while you're at it?
Yeah, no worries. I'm
Great.
going to sort that out. Cheers.
Thanks.
Is that the new lad you were telling me about?
Yeah, it's Rob. He's a really good worker.
Yeah, I know him. He was jailed for fighting down our local pub. He's a nasty piece of work. What are you doing employing him? And I don't want him working on any of my jobs.
Rob, why didn't you tell me about your record, eh?
Because I wanted to work for you, and I didn't think you'd give me a job if you knew I had a record.
Look, you're a really good worker, but this is affecting my business now. I'm going to have to let you go.
As you can see, in this situation, the boss had no choice but to let him go. Now let's see what could have happened if he had disclosed his criminal past.
What are you doing employing him? And I don't want him working on any of my jobs.
Listen, Dave, I know about his past. He told me at his interview. I get the impression he's really sorry for what's happened in the past. And he was very open and honest about it, so I believe him. I just wanted to give the lad a second chance.
Yeah, well, I've had dealings with
Listen, Dave. It turns out he's a really good worker and he's a really good engineer. He's a real asset to my company. And that order you were just thanking me for, well, he was staying here until 11 o'clock the other night to make sure it was finished and shipped. Look, Dave, I believe people can change, and Rob's one of those people. He's had some stuff that's happened in the past, but that's well behind him now. So just give him a chance. You'll find out he's a real good worker and he's a great lad.
Let's find out what Lee Jones from NACRO can tell us about a positive disclosure statement and how it can help you.
Hello, here are some NACRO top tips on how you can positively disclose your convictions to a potential employer. Firstly, we always recommend that you write a positive statement. This is known as a disclosure statement. If you struggle with writing, you can always contact your employment advisor, probation officer, or NACRO for support. Secondly, you might be better at explaining things via speaking rather than writing, but it's difficult to feel totally relaxed in an interview, and you don't want the entire interview to be overtaken by discussions about your conviction, as you may end up giving the wrong information. Thirdly, having something in writing reduces these potential pitfalls and will serve as evidence that you have disclosed your conviction. Fourthly, the disclosure statement should always start off with a positive. State why you're applying for the role and what you can offer in terms of skills, ability, experience and knowledge. Finally, if your life has changed and improved since the offences, state how and why and how you'll not get into trouble again as a result of these changes. If you're not sure where to start, you may find it useful to jot down the answers to the following questions. Why are you applying for this job? What makes you think you can do the job? Can you tell me about your offences? How old were you when the offence occurred? Was there anything else happening in your life at the time of the offence? How did you feel then? How do you feel now? How can I be sure that you're not a risk? How is your life different now? I hope you found this information useful. If you need any further information, please speak with your probation officer or contact NACRO.
So, you're going to have to get some help to work out when and if your convictions will be spent and whether you should tell your employers about them. If this all sounds a bit complicated, like I said before, the first thing to do is to get some advice from your probation officer. The nice folk at the probation service have also created a special web page to help you. It's full of links to useful resources and organisations that provide dedicated confidential helplines and online services where you can get expert advice. There is even an online calculator to help work out when your convictions will be spent. Now you know whether you have to tell a future employer, it's time to decide if you want to tell them or not. Bear in mind that a shocking estimated 75% of employers throw away application forms if they know that the applicant is an ex-offender. So there are risks involved in telling them. However, if they do ask and your convictions aren't spent, it's a criminal offence not to tell them. In practice, if you don't tell them and they find out about your criminal record, then they can sack you and you have no legal protection. The lesson here is that revealing your criminal record to your boss will be more reassuring for you and your employer, and it will also greatly reduce the chances of you getting the sack. So, you've decided to make a positive disclosure, but please do one thing before filling in your application form, which most jobs now require. Think about how you are going to present your criminal record. You might have to talk about it in a job interview or write about it in a job application form. To make sure you present the best angle on your past, you should try and create a written statement explaining your record. Whether you use it or not, it will be really helpful to get it straight on paper and in your mind before you get asked about it. Even if you're not the greatest at writing, and trust me, I know what that feels like, you should get someone, your probation officer, a friend or relation, your employment advisor, or one of those other services we have told you about to help you when writing the disclosure statement. You could even try role-playing with whoever is helping you. A written statement will help your employer to get a much clearer idea of the circumstances around your convictions, and, even more importantly, help them to see how you've moved on since then. Without a statement, they will be relying on criminal record checks, which can't ever tell the whole story about the person behind the crime. So, you've completed your disclosure statement. The next step is to find out whether you need to disclose. You can usually tell on the application form if you're required to do this. If you are not required to disclose, then fill out the application form, making sure you make your experiences and skills relevant to the job you're applying for. But if you do need to disclose, then you'll have a statement to include with your application form. Now let's say you make it to the interview stage. This is where all the hard work you've done on your previous will really come in handy. But first, let's see an example of what not to do or where.
Please. So Steve, I see by your application you have some criminal convictions. Could you please tell me a little bit about them?
Well, like I wrote on your application, I've got a bit of a past, yeah. But that ain't going to affect the way that I work for you. I've done a little bit of jail and stuff like that, but hasn't everybody?
Yeah?
Well, I just sold some weed to my mates, not a big deal. Ain't like I was trying to hurt anybody. In prison? That was a bit of a joke, to be honest. More like a holiday camp, as they say. I wouldn't have been caught if my mate and grasped me up in the first place. But tell you something. I ain't finished with him yet.
Thanks for sharing that. And that will be all. We'll get back to you. Thank you.
Alright. Nice one.
Here's another way of doing it. Notice how our man has smartened himself up. When asked about his past, he takes responsibility for his mistakes and tries to honestly answer the interviewer's possible concerns.
So, Steve, I see by your application you have some criminal convictions. Could you please tell me a little bit about them?
Yeah, I did 8 months for possession of Class B with intent, and I was arrested when I was younger for drunk and disorderly.
And how long ago was this?
Well, I've been out for 2 months now, and that's why I'm looking for work. I don't think what I did in the past really affects this job at all. I want to be a salesman, and that's why I'm here.
But you haven't done it before, have you?
No, but I regret what I did. I've done my time for it now. I'm not looking for a job out of charity. When I was in prison, I revisited my GCSEs, and I'm doing a course at night school now to get me the qualifications that I need. I mean, this is a career that I want to be in. And I'm interested in working for your firm if you give me the chance.
Okay. Tell you what, I'll give you a 4-week trial.
Oh, great, thank you.
We start on Monday.
Oh,
Does that sound good?
thank you. Yes, it does. That's wonderful.
And I'll see you soon.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
That was a nice guy. And next.
As a rule, it's best to tell as few people as possible, and only those that you're going to have a chance to speak to in person. With a bit of thought, you can actually turn your disclosure to your advantage by using it to show just how far you've come since your offending. That makes it even more important to prepare a well-written personal statement, as well as an up-to-date CV relevant to the jobs you are applying for, all of which your probation officer or your employment advisor can help you with. With a bit of thought, help, and the right attitude in the interview, you can even use the disclosure of your past criminal record to your advantage and really press home how much you've changed for the better since your offending. The advantage of leaving them with a written personal disclosure is that it will end up with the HR department, who will have an input into whether you are hired or not.
Come in. Well, now we've discussed the post, and you do seem to know quite a lot about the fashion industry, there are 1 or 2 things on your application form I'd like to discuss. I understand you have a record.
Yeah, that's right. Shall I go now?
No, please sit down. Thank you. Please appreciate it's in our interests to know if a previous conviction is going to have any bearing on certain responsibilities you may be given if you come to work here.
Look, I was done for credit card fraud. I'm not going to nick your purses every time I walk past you in the corridor. You don't know what it's like to have no money, do you?
Please don't get upset.
It was only £2,000.
Look, it's not the amount of money that's important. The fact is that fraud is a premeditated crime and a serious offence.
I suppose you two have never done anything like that, have you? Look, there are thousands of dodgy deals going on. It's called business, isn't it? Anyway, what's my past got to do with a fashion design job?
I think we should stop this right there, Miss Morby.
Oh, really? Thank you.
As you can see, this young lady was a little bit defensive when asked about her criminal past. Now, let's see what happens when she is well prepared for any questions that may be asked by her potential employers.
Hi. Hello. Well, now that we've discussed the post at some length and gone into some detail, you do seem to know quite a lot about the fashion industry. There are one or two things on your application form that I'd like to discuss with you. I understand you have a record.
Yeah, I do.
Well, I'm sure you'll appreciate it is in our interests to find out if any previous conviction has a bearing on certain responsibilities you might be given if you come to join us here.
I was at college and I was in debt. I couldn't afford to live on the grant I was getting. I got caught for credit card fraud and I served 6 months.
Right. Have you worked since?
No. I've been to university. Because of my record, I didn't think I could return to work in the profession I wanted to. So I've retrained in the fashion industry.
Okay. So you haven't got any experience?
Well, I made what I'm wearing and I've got a first class degree.
Yes. Look, I'd like to give you a couple of tests to do, if that's all right. And to be honest, if your work's up to standard, I see no reason why we can't offer you a position here.
Really? Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye. I think she's lovely.
Let's have a summary of what we've said so far. Prepare your CV tailored to the job that you have applied for. Check the recruitment policy of the organisation to find out whether you are required to disclose your criminal record. If you are, ensure that only the essential people are told about your criminal record. Prepare a positive disclosure statement. Get your disclosure statement reviewed by a probation officer, employment advisor, or a family member. Practice interviewing and telling others about your past. After seeing this film, you may still be feeling that the odds are against you. But remember, there are millions of men and women out there who, like us, have a criminal record. And it doesn't stop them from achieving rewarding careers. I believe there are some really good lessons to be learned from this film. One of the most important is that if you can take responsibility for your past mistakes by preparing to disclose your criminal record when you need to, you should be well on the road to a future where you can sell your past rather than letting your past sell you.
If you want to know more, ask your probation officer or visit the following website, where you'll find a toolkit for how to apply for a job, as well as contacts to other organisations that can help you.